Hi there, everybody. This is Mrs. Gable. I'm looking at TCI. I'm on Chapter 14, Section 3, Strikes Erupt Nationwide. So from Section 2, we learned kind of that labor unions are becoming more of a thing in the United States. As they continue to grow strength, workers demonstrate more of a willingness to go on strike. All right. So when business owners they oppose union demands, there's going to be a confrontation, okay? And those normally result in a strike. So we first talk about the railroad strike of 1877. Okay. Now, the issue is that the economy is in a depression. All right, things are not going well because the government is going through the laissez-faire policy, meaning that they're not going to intervene, they're not going to do much about it, they're not going to boost the economy or help with worker suffering. People are starving, children are dying, and working class communities are very, very upset by this. Right now, the railroad companies, how they react to the depression is that they are going to continue to cut pay. Right. Well, in West Virginia, rail workers went on strike in 1877, and that's going to spread nationally, all across the U.S. Okay. Eventually, these strikers shut down half of the country's rail lines. Okay. Now, in order to keep the tracks closed, strikers battle police and state militias. Right. Now, eventually, things escalate when that happens, and riots end up erupting across the nation. Okay. When what ends up happening is that strikers, strike supporters, they end up burning and looting railroad property. Police and the militia couldn't control that, so the president had to call in the army in order to regain order and to get the trains rolling again. Okay. Now, the strike went on for 2 weeks, and the issues that it left about 100 people dead across the United States and millions of dollars worth of property destroyed. Okay. Now, a lot of people did not like hearing that, okay, that there was so much violence and destruction, and they ultimately are going to worry about a working class revolution, okay? Now, unfortunately, as there are more strikes, there's going to continue to be more violence, okay? So 3 major events start happening. We have the Haymarket Affair, the Homestead Strike, and the Pullman Strike. The Haymarket Affair takes place in Chicago in 1886. And basically, when strikers go on strike, non-union workers are brought in to replace them. Okay. Well, these strikers fought what they call them scabs, these non-union workers, and police end up trying to break it up and end up firing a shot into the crowd, killing at least one striker, wounding others. Okay. Now, a group of anarchists, people who reject all forms of government, call a protest meeting. Now, 1,000 people attend this meeting, including the city's mayors, several speakers, all right? And the crowd itself remained calm during this meeting. However, near one of the speeches, 180 Chicago police stormed in to break up the gathering. That causes chaos and issues, and it exploded the issue, and police ended up killing people within the crowd, as well as several officers died in the crowd as well, okay? All right. We continue on to the Homestead Strike. That occurs several years later in 1892, and that's with iron and steel workers at Andrew Carnegie's steel plant in Pennsylvania. All right. Now, Andrew Carnegie was away, so his manager, Henry Frick, was in charge. Frick had hired 300 private guards from the Pinkerton Agency, all right, in order to protect the plant against strikers. Pinkerton agents often worked as spies. They joined unions to undercover plans and identify union members by name. Okay. Even though they weren't members of police, they carried guns as well. Now, these Pinkerton agents arrive, and the strikers are armed and ready to go as well. A day-long gun battle in which 9 strikers died. The Pinkerton agents retreated, and the strikers took control of the town. Now, again, the Pennsylvania governor had to call in state militia. Okay. Eventually, the union was shut out entirely of the plant for the next 4 decades. That's 40 years. Pullman Strike of 1894. was, again, striking workers. The Pullman Palace Car Company on the south side of Chicago was producing fancy rail cars for long-distance travelers. All right. Now, in company towns, workers rented company-owned housing and purchased food and other goods at company stores, often at inflated prices. As a result, many workers owed large debts to the company, and oftentimes all their wages went towards paying off bills at the company store. Okay, so basically, this is how Pullman kind of kept the workers down by forcing them to live into these communities that all the money basically went back to Pullman. Okay, now there was another bout of depression in 1894, and Pullman cut wages by about 25%. That's a very significant drop in pay. All right. However, when they're living in those towns, they didn't lower rent, they didn't lower the food, they didn't lower any of the living expenses. So the workers went on strike. The American Railway Union supported the strike. All right. And its members shut down most rail traffic in the Midwest by refusing to handle trains with Pullman cars. Another president sent in federal troops to end the strike. After a violent encounter between troops and strikers, the strike collapsed and the troops withdrew. That's all. That is a part of Chapter 14, Section 3.